Hi, my name is Debbie Richardson, and I live with stiff person syndrome. This is Rare Disease Day, February 28th, and I want to talk to you about my introduction into rare disease. My prelude to my diagnosis came with the birth of my second child. She was diagnosed at 3 months with Spinal Muscular Atrophy-1, Werdnig-Hoffman, with a life expectancy of 1 to 2 years. I can't begin to describe the devastation of a diagnosis like that for your child. But I do remember doctors speak. I remember the pediatrician and the grim seriousness when he walked out of the room without saying anything to me and sent us down to Children's Hospital for evaluation. I knew that it was not good. She had her EMG, and the neurologist that performed the EMG could not look me in the eye. He looked down at his feet, and all he said was, "It's really hard for me to give a mother bad news about her child." The frequent stays into the hospital, we were on display. They said they only got 1 or 2 babies like my little girl a year. So every time they had a group of students come in, we were the sideshow that they came in to see. My child was being discussed to gum-popping students, indifferent to what I was going through in the turmoil of my world and my life. I had my first experience with a doctor I did not like. When we were discharged after her diagnosis, the doctor made the statement to me, "Just take her home and love her. She's going to die." Just matter of fact, nothing else. But I also got a glimpse of a good doctor. In one of our hospital stays, a muscle doctor came in with the little guy that was underneath her, a resident, and she explained what was wrong with my daughter, and they left. While she was sleeping, I went down to get a soda, and when I came back, that young man was there at her bedside and just stroking her and looking at her very much filled with compassion, care, concern, and sadness. My little girl was severely challenged, but she was very bright, very smart. And as her disease progressed, I could pretend normalcy until the day she went to get her feeding tube, and that's when I couldn't pretend everything was normal anymore. It was the reality check that something really is going to happen. But her life was a blessing. She was very pleasant. She was smart, engaging, loved games. She blessed our lives in ways I can't even begin to describe. And then it came time for her to die. And I never felt such sadness, devastation, grief as watching your child die. They told me she would die peacefully in her sleep, but she didn't. She hung on like a warrior. And the nurse was softly crying in the background. The doctor was frustrated and beside himself. And of course, I was a mess. And her dad, he just didn't know what to do, very stoic. And she hung on, and she hung on, and she hung on till her brother got there. And when she got there and the family unit was complete, only then did she let go. So I learned from my little girl that you can be cheerful and happy when things aren't well with you. And in that little body, I saw such courage and such a tenacity for this life and love for others, even though she was too young to express it. Now, fast forward to me. I had symptoms that kept getting progressively worse. I had my first full body spasm. I had quit running because they said it was a stress fracture in my back, so I thought maybe that would help. So I was taking a walk and my body convulsed severely, and I grabbed, ironically, a stop sign. And my heart was beating really fast. I waited till the episode subsided, and I slowly lumbered to my house, and I couldn't explain it, and I didn't tell anybody. And as the symptoms kept getting worse, stiffness, I couldn't put my shoes on like I normally did. And I had some falls, stitches in my head. I still couldn't explain it, and I wanted to pretend to myself normalcy. Well, I explained in my first video that I was sent to a doctor who had to assess me for work. And in frustration, as I told you, he threw his clipboard down on the bed. Examining table said he didn't know what was wrong with me. Well, when he sent me to Cleveland Clinic to see Dr. Misamoto, I was reading over his assessment. And the only thing that I was capable of was unlimited use of my eyes. I couldn't stand for 5 minutes. I couldn't kneel. I couldn't sit. I was totally, completely, in his assessment, unlimited use of my eyes. And I thought back to my daughter, and I thought of the doctors I had met along the way, some of them the God syndrome doctors that, you know, they knew what was wrong with me when they didn't. And that's when reality really hit me. And we got on the 9th floor of that teaching hospital, and I can't even pick my feet up. I have to bend over and I have to hold on to my former husband, and we get up there and it's the neurology floor, and all I remember is shiny steel. The shiny steel of wheelchairs, walkers, the challenged gait of some, the limp forms of others. And I thought, my God, is this going to be my world? And I flashed back to visits to the children's hospital and kids in situations unimaginable that I saw. And then now I'm up here and it's me. And when he told me the diagnosis, and of course nobody knew what that was, as I expressed in my very first video, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Was I going to die? And there's no words to describe a feeling like that. Unlimited use of my eyes, being practically carried out of the exam room by my former husband, from the white glare of the exam room to the shiny steel in the waiting room. During my visits to Cleveland Clinic, since I was rare, I had to be seen, or they wanted me to be seen, by up-and-coming young neurologists, just like my daughter, me. And I think back to the fairs that I went to as a child and the quarter freak shows that you could go to, and I thought, this is what this is about. And they would come in and I would have to explain my symptoms to them, and they would listen, rapt fascination. One young resident And he meant no harm by it. But he looked at me, he looked at my history, and he knew I had a daughter who passed from a rare disease. And he said, how does it feel to have two exotic illnesses? And I'm thinking, exotic? My child died and I have unlimited use of my eyes, and this is exotic? That was my introduction into the world of rare. And we will be celebrating, and I use the word celebrating, we're wanting to bring awareness to all rare diseases. There are 7,000 rare diseases. 1 out of 10 Americans will be diagnosed with one. There aren't research done on these illnesses, and treatment is unavailable a lot of times because of insurance glitches. But as a whole community, we're a large group of people. And in my situation, as I will tell in up-and-coming videos, with treatment, a lot of time, and a lot of hard work, you can, in some cases, reach a stability and a quality of life and get some of that life back. I would like to see more research done. This video is to let you know my intro into the world of rare, and it is also an outreach for awareness for rare disease. Thank you, and may God bless.